I can't hear. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine. I think just no one's talking.
I see. She was moving her lips, so I kind of got confused. Thank you.
Hello, friends.
So we're giving a few moments for everyone to join in.
Hello, Tiffany. It's been a few weeks.
It has.
I've spoken of you a few times and kind of like, is she here? Oh no. It's been good.
Thank you. It's good to see you. So as everyone is logging in, and by the way, my name is Tiffany, and I heard Shaelee's voice as well. But we're just gonna give just a little bit of time for people to get transitioned and to get here. So asking for some grace and some patience. I send that back.
This is like a quiet clapping. This doesn't really show up as much. And clapping seems a little violent too. You can just be like, sparkles.
My women's spiritual group calls that twinkle fingers. You know, we twinkle at each other. Quietly.
That's awesome. Hey, it's so good to see you, Patricia. It's like without Patricia and Meadow and some of these people who I literally only talk to once a year, really. It's just kind of like a yearly tradition to.
Yeah. And I missed it last year.
Oh, did you?
I missed it last year, and it was an accessibility question problem, and I was going to address that up front this year, and then COVID happened. Yeah, I couldn't go to that one because I would have had to park my bus in one place, go a long distance to where the meetings were, a long distance the other way to where the food was, and also bring my cat because I didn't have anyone to care for her. And I'm too old to do all that running around. I can't do it. I do not have the energy, you know. So
sorry, Patricia.
I gave up, and that was the first in over 10 years that I had missed permaculture convergence.
Well, thanks for sharing, Patricia. We missed you, and I'm glad I wish we had a chance to give hugs. Yeah.
Virtual, yeah.
Yeah. So, so this is year 4.
Hey, I think Marley, this is... I've been seeing a lot of Marley.
And Gailey.
Yes. So while we wait on others to join, and I'm waiting on Shaelee, can you hear everyone? Okay. So while we're waiting on, okay, Shaelee is coming soon. So just had a few snafus on the in there, but while we're waiting for just members of our extended community here to join, I would actually ask that we just take a moment, just kind of reflect on where we are right now, what's resonating with you in your mind and your body, and what's most present for you. So if you just take a few moments to do that, I greatly appreciate it. And then we're gonna go swimming together, perhaps. Maybe we won't go swimming. It might be just dipping in a toe, but it'll be something along those lines. I love water, so I'll give you water analogies all day. All right. Shaelee, I see your lovely face. Hi. But we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Typed back in the Zoom information from the room that I left, and I was like, "What's going on?" And then woo. So thank everybody for just creating this patient, loving space to be open to new models that we're designing, so that we can be connected and hear from each other. So proud of all of us for doing that.
So thank you all for being here. And thank you, Shaelee, for putting that energy and intention into why we're here. I want to actually start off with thanking our facilitators. We had Ridhi facilitating a BIPOC space, and then Adam was also facilitating a non-BIPOC space. And I wanted to first acknowledge both of you and say thank you for taking the time to create those spaces with such thought and intention and care. And to say that for this space, for me, I really want to be clear. So if there's anything I say and it doesn't, like, I'm not quite sure what you mean, know that this is space, you can tell me that. I'm all about having that shared open communication, because I really want to be able to have shared meaning together. This space that was put together is not to recount what happened in the sessions. It's not to give an overview or checkpoint list. This space is really about listening and witnessing one another and speaking from your own experiences. So I would ask that we don't retell someone else's story or something, but speak to what resonates with you, something you're sitting with, or maybe it's an aha moment, or maybe it's a place where that's a place that is a tender part. And that's a place that I got to work with that. It could be pain. There are many things. I would say show up in a way that you know your limits. You know where you are better than anyone else. There is no pressure. And I ask that we practice, because I think this is a practice. We're not perfect. This is practice. But practice being open to other experiences that may not be like your own, that may not match your narrative, that may not match your story. And that's okay. So that's, and I will also say, Justin, starting out and acknowledging our two facilitators. I personally think it's important that if our two facilitators wanted to share anything, I'd like to open it up to Ridhi and to Adam first. So Ridhi, there's no pressure. If there's something that you just resonates with your own being, I'd ask you to share, and then if you could pass it to Adam.
Thanks, Tiffany. I'll just share that I feel really grateful to have made and been given the space to create something just prior for BIPOC folks. And in case Ron and others, BIPOC is lingo we throw around, but it stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. So BIPOC. And just feel really grateful and curious to see what this session unearths for us.
Thanks, Ridhi. Yeah, I too feel just gratitude for the non-BIPOC space, to be able to have held that space, and for the folks in that space to really approach what can be really hard and scary conversations, ones that can bring up a lot of emotion, a lot of tension, a lot of conflict. And I feel like the participants in that space really approached it with integrity and curiosity. And I saw a lot of really wonderful questions and comments flying around in the chat space. And just, really just want to say thank you for creating that space that we really all held together.
And Adam, was there an intention for this 30 minutes that we have that you wanted to put forward?
I mean, I am all about what Tiffany invited into the space. Just, you know, what's coming up for people now, not what came up before. Although if that's relevant still, then that's great. But yeah, I think it's just an open dialogue.
Feel welcome to use the chat box. I want to recognize that people have different ways of communicating and showing up. One of the cool things in Zoom, maybe you're a visual person, if there's a picture that that's what speaks for you, share a picture with us. So it could be words, it could be a picture. I don't know, you might even have a song. I don't know. But know that it's flexible. And I think that's that part of like, how do we just share what's coming up? And if it's something that's challenging and something that even that you're struggling with, honestly, I would say from my, it's okay to acknowledge, you know what? I'm still struggling through this, but here is where I'm at. That's how we move. That's how we move forward through the challenging conversations. So I'll actually share my experience, what's resonating with me. I attended the BIPOC space that was facilitated so graciously by Ridhi, and I feel a lot of gratitude in my body right now. And I appreciated being able to share my own story and my own relationship with land. I can say from living in this country called United States of America, and oftentimes people who look like me, they have this complexion, I'm not often seen with having a relationship with land. And so, and I grew up in a very, very deeply reverent family in relationship to land. And so being in a space to share that and to be witnessed in my own distinct light was something I was really grateful and appreciated. And also having the opportunity to learn too, because I also had some tender parts that were poked. And one of my tender parts that was poked in that session that came up in my body, I was thinking, I was like anti-Blackness. And oftentimes how that can be in a space, but we don't call it out. But I recognize how it feels in my body. And so I made a note to myself, like that's something I want to sit with after the session. But that's where I'm at right now.
Can we take a minute or two of intentional quiet to reflect on our time in our private, in whatever session we were in, and write it in the chat? I really appreciated how Ridhi and Adam both had that in their facilitation of their spaces, of just giving us this, no one needs to talk and fill the space. We can have quiet or we can have music and you can reflect. And I'm so grateful to be learning from these two facilitators, and always you, Tiffany. I appreciate just that, the examples of leadership you three are sharing. And I'd like to copy that in this moment to request that we have that quiet moment where we can, if we feel like it, just put it out there or just reflect on it for ourselves. Is that okay? And if one of you wants to end that, that's okay. Or if you want me to, you can like poke at me too. But I'd rather leave you three in facilitating if you'd like.
And David, feel welcome, because I appreciate that you're watching, because I know we have a lot of people that if you see a hand up, I just want to just give it to you and say, please call it out so we make sure that we're not missing anyone.
Yeah, Marcy, while we're taking this time, if you would like to speak, we see that your hand is up and you can share for a moment too.
Oh, I started writing my what I was going to put in the chat, so I'll just read what I wrote. I think these are brave conversations. We intend to connect and bridge the gap. At this time in history, there is more division than what I've ever seen in the past, and that even progressive white people are under attack for being open or supportive to people of color. I feel privileged that I've had a good job and I've had the ability to explore my own self and travel and own land and go to school and stuff like that. So I'm available to this space, and I have experienced racism and sexism, and because thanks to NBC, I've been able to transcend and move past that quickly. I'll hold my ground, and I can set up a new fight if I have to. I've been a longshoreman for 36 years, and when I started, there were only 11 women on the dock, and yeah, and so it was a huge journey with that, and so I think, well, I was mentioning in the other group that when I went to Cuba in January with the human rights group, we spoke to people and leadership and stuff, and they were saying, this one man who specialized on race relations, saying that because they had the equal footing of access to education and access to health care, and because they leveled the playing field with, access to land and growing, that people in general didn't like they didn't see themselves as Black Cubans or white Cubans. It was more like they're just Cubans, But anyway, that was the beginning of what I was trying to write. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your reflection and what resonated with you, Marcy. Appreciate it.
Something that inspired me from the end of our last session is the kind of commitments to action that folks put in the chat window. And if you feel open and comfortable, that might be something that you can kind of reshare in this chat window.
I'd like to just jump in and say hello and share. I've been really feeling, outside of this conversation, before this conversation, and now too, feeling it, a really deep desire to be really helpful, especially to like Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and also knowing like how much I was raised with, just by proxy of being raised in like a suburban, predominantly white, middle class, like neighborhood upbringing, everything, and in this culture, just feeling like I've often felt like really paralyzed as to how to be helpful. And there's this kind of helpful that like I'm familiar with. Genevieve and I were talking about it this morning, where somebody's like, let me help you. Okay, so you do all this work so that I can help you. And it's exhausting. And I don't have any desire to be that person. So I've almost like stayed sometimes isolated in my own like comfortable bubble, because I don't know how to be helpful in a way that's like truly helpful. And I think I still don't, and I feel like it's really important to be honest, and really sit with like not knowing, rather than try to fill that space with something that is just like a space filler. So I really have a lot of questions as like what is needed from me. How can I like put my skills and heart and ability and resources towards ways of being that are moving past the like land ownership models that of this stolen place, and giving back the land in ways that we can be with each other and create trust. And like, what does it take to create trust across like very divided cultural and race lines, and like how can I help serve that? And I yeah, I feel like I almost like feel a lot of fear of speaking, because I feel like I'll say something wrong. And I think there's a lot of fear of being wrong that then like feeds into this like not actually creating relationships in our communities and continuing the divisions that because we don't want to say like the wrong thing. At least for me, that happens. So yeah, I just have a lot of questions in my mind. Yeah.
Could I jump in there really quick? A dear sister, I shared something very similar, and I'm thankful for what you just shared. And I feel like I'm in a very similar place. And the dear sister said to me, who is a person who has a darker complexion, so David, what do you know? And what you just said was an action within itself. And an action within itself is to say, hey, I'm scared. Hey, I don't know. Hey, this is my thought. This is my thought. And really, no one can really attack you for your thoughts. They might maybe give you guidance. As long as we're speaking in love, it's just a beautiful thing to be able to share that. So thank you for saying that. I feel like I'm in a very similar space. I want to just quickly add one of my thoughts, and that is, from what I was encouraged to do, is also to do what I do know. And what I do know to do is to be humble and listen and be transparent. But then I also know that I have opportunity to coppice myself and to give in ways that I do know. So yes, I hear you in the fear of the unknown, but it's kind of like when we're planting a forest. Sometimes we can step into the space that we do know and walk, just rest in that, because maybe we're just meant to do this one little thing that we do know. And I've been surprised at when you step into humility and just say, I don't know and I'm scared, how quickly what does come up and how much love and care that can be. So thank you for what you shared.
I see Marley has her hand up. If you'd like to unmute yourself and share.
Yeah, what has been said is true for me. I have a nervousness in my gut, and also that pairs with grief in my heart, and trying to act in ways and educate myself in ways that was beneficial for people around me. So trying to help plant seeds in other people's lives about anti-racism. And I get very, very defensive when I'm around people who, you were talking, Alex, about the little r racism and also the big R kind of racism, that I want to be able to, and I do my best to point out systemic racism and how it is benefiting us if we're not constantly checking ourselves and constantly working to not keep benefiting from the system and to not keep the system moving. And I have a big responsibility to do my reading and listen and hopefully heal. But there's a connection piece where I get really nervous and it makes my throat kind of close up, and I don't want to feel nervous in having conversation about how can we heal this wound together. I really value this conversation, and it's been happening in a lot of communities that I've been able to be a part of. And so I'm just constantly checking myself and trying to connect.
Thank you for sharing your personal experiences and listening. And I'm going to bring something up with my fellow teammates on the board. We've had a lot of lengthy discussions about vulnerability. And we have to, I think one of the things that I'm really proud of is how we've acknowledged how it's not often easy. And it goes back to those tender parts to get open. And also being able to hear experiences that they may challenge the way or the view that perhaps when we looked out the window, the way that we saw the world, or perhaps is that pain that lands in the body. And also acknowledge our other members here in this space in the chat. Marcy wrote, I think these are brave conversations. The intent to connect and bridge the gap. The time in history, there is more division than what I've ever seen in the past. She says, even progressive white people are under attack for being open or supportive to people of color. And then and I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's name. No, it is definitely not intended. I think it's Merla says the actions that I believe are a next step for myself, researching the information and the connections to the people who have an ancestral connection to the land that I'm now living on, moved here a year ago. I found out yesterday the tribe that non-BIPOC people call the Molala were in the immediate vicinity in much of the Willamette Valley, Kiwi people, and apparently a number of them are in the Grand Ronde Reservation and others are in the Warm Springs Reservation. The latter is closest to us. Galen mentioned that there is some way to choose to pay taxes to the tribe rather than to the usual local, county, and state taxes. Meadow writes, noticing how this diversity feels so good, a colonial upbringing inside myself so that I don't perpetuate oppression or exploitation. Also, how to be grateful without subliminal white savior, white privilege for black color, love, and joy. Patricia writes, for white folks, Me and White Supremacy by Layla Asad is this great book for addressing those issues. And Galen sent out a thank you. And then Shaelee, I see, would you like to read yours for yourself? I know your face.
Sure. These sessions brought to light the tension I feel in my bones with the BIPOC and white labels, and how my cultural heritage, which my family emphasized the way back that we were connected to, and my multiracial family, which feels like it's me, and how I feel displaced under both of those terms. Yet I can recognize the truth of what white has done in the world and how BIPOC has been disadvantaged, and that's so real and it needs to be confronted. And that came up in the group. And also in my own heritage with that, there's, coming here and all of that. But I also love the challenge in our group to make a declaration and to spend time on thoughts and what we can all do to help bring about collective freedom. That was a word that came up that really resonated with me on more than just like decolonizing is a part of that, but it's bringing everybody into liberty. And my declaration was to use the business or nonprofit power that is given to us by stewards of an organization as a means to steward those resources back to marginalized people or people who don't have a voice through collaborative management and transparency and inclusive design. And so I hope we're doing that with the Northwest Permaculture Convergence. And if anyone has any suggestions on how this organization can be a better nonprofit, it can do a lot. And we want to use this nonprofit to do all the good we can.
Thank you, Shaelee. I noticed Kristen has her hand up.
Yes, hi, Kirsten. I was caught by what you said, Adam, of put more energy into how to move forward with change. I'm summarizing quickly what you said, but the part that caught me was the put more energy in. And so I was the other day I was driving, so the tribe, the Twana were the people on our land. And all of the smaller tribes have been merged into the Skokomish tribe, which is on the Skokomish estuary is on the other side of the Hood Canal from us. So I was taking a long drive the other day and drove through the Skokomish area and stopped at the community center, and I sat in my car wondering, well, what would I do? What would I say? What would I, because I've had this wish to connect with them first because we're on this land and because we are doing a lot of land restoration and so forth. So what would be a way to make a connection? And I'm like a major introvert, so that's not, but it just magnifies the wondering of how I would just go in there and say,
with a small circle lapping.
and just say how to start a conversation. But the other thing I realize is that it's so easy to just stay comfortable. Oh, we have a lot of work to do here. We've got our hands full and so forth. The Squaxin tribe down south of here has a monthly garden day. We could go down there. So it's just to begin to move, make motion in the right direction. And so I'm partly just fessing up to my own recognition that as a week goes by, a day goes by, months go by, oh, it's just comfortable to keep working here and doing everything we have to do here on our land. And put more energy out, thank you, Adam, is not that. So that's what I'm committing to, is putting more energy out.
Thank you, Kirsten.
I am looking for our awareness at time because I don't have our schedule up here. We should have a little bit of space between each session. 3:40. So we have 5 minutes until a session by Matthew Nelson on somatic healing.
And as we're closing up, as Shaelee is transitioning us into, and I thank you for mentioning the next session, Shaelee, because one of the things that I have been spending time with in my own journey and my own growth is, you know, getting clear on what work is my work, also in relation to my own identity. Where are the places do I connect with other beings in their journey? Where are those spaces of really getting in touch what lives in my physical body? I think that's one thing that I would just encourage an exploration. If it resonates, if it enters you, I'm not saying you or telling you what to do. As I tell people in my life, you're all grown folk, can't tell grown folk anything. So, but I would invite you to look into what comes up in your physical body. Maybe it's sensations. Maybe it's when your throat starts closed, or you feel clammy, or you feel a tightness or a clench. One of the books I'm reading right now is called My Grandmother Hands, and it's written from this somatic perspective. And it's talking about how the wounds from racism, from discrimination, from, you know, chattel slavery that we've all, just by way of being connected to this place we call the United States of America, we're affected. And one of the things that I've been really sitting with from this book is, how does that show up in our physical bodies? And so I think I'm really grateful that there is a somatic session coming up next. And I'm really grateful for each of you for taking a step to talk about something that oftentimes can be challenging, and it can be painful, and it can bring up judgments. We don't talk about the judgments in the internal, the silent part we might not share, but that happens. And know that you are not alone in that. And I think that's part of that process. But if you keep taking a step forward and to saying, you know what, I'm going to be willing to try and explore, and I'm willing to explore myself and explore with others, even others that I might feel a little bit of discomfort, but being able, willing to acknowledge that, I think that's how we really move into connecting with one another. And I think about it from an interspecial view as well, other species, you know, fear. And then when you have that curiosity and you observe, these are the things that help us, creates the conditions so we can take those steps. And then I wanted to put out there, Shaelee, that perhaps that we could put out some additional resources following to support people, because I know there were questions and it might be helpful. You all give us feedback if it's helpful, if we had a space where questions could be written down as well. I think part of it is, how do we continue this beyond this time and this moment? Because it is a practice, and it's something, as a mentor of me told me, this is a practice that we'll be doing while we're here on this earth. Because it's not just even for us, but it's also for our ancestors and for those who are unborn. We're each a link, like each of you actually are an important, essential part to this work. So I thank you each for showing up to it. I'll pass it to you, teammate.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we are copying all the resources in the chat into a chat channel on Slack. And as we have the bandwidth, we'll try to organize that into something that we can publish more easily, but it's searchable in the Slack. So you could go into the Zoom one and find this channel or find this part of the Zoom chat log and pull out those resources if we don't get to it soon enough. Yeah.
Can I also say, I know sometimes it's easier for people to talk by voice. Mm-hmm. So, and I know we're really hitting Slack and Discord hard, but in Discord there are voice channels that we have created, so people can go in there and start a conversation with people. If you want to have that, you know, if you don't have a Zoom or you don't have a Zoom room or you don't want to deal with that, we do have that available. We also can, you know, make a Zoom room. If people would rather Zoom, we could create that space for people. So just send an email to us at info@northwestpermaculture.org, and we'll create spaces for people to have these conversations. So, you know, I know technology is weird. There's Facebook, there's phones, there's all kinds of different things that we can use, and we want to be available for people and meet you where you're at, and try to provide spaces.
Yeah, and to affirm what Cassie's saying, all the resources that this board has are for the benefit of our community. So our Zoom room that can do long meetings and be scheduled, like that is for everybody's use. We usually use it on Tuesday night, but we could reschedule it if there was something important that someone knew of a group and asked to use the room for that space. We're open to that. Yeah. And I don't quite remember how Ridhi said it, but if you could correct me, it was something like deep steps, take deep breaths, or something like that. And I would love it if anyone remembers what that is, but it's this heart of when we're doing big work together, we should breathe. And so deep topics take deep breaths. Thank you. And if we can just take a few, maybe 3 breaths of just cleansing and spaciousness with each other, and then we can transition into that healing place. And I imagine Matthew will be here soon if he's not here already. So thanks.
I'm here when you're ready for me.
All right. Thank you. So much gratitude to everyone for being here and being vulnerable with each other and being on a path of healing together. Thank you for helping us continue on that path, Matthew. I turn it over to you, and we'll work on making you co-host too, if you would like that too.
Oh, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate that. Ah, wow. Well, it's an honor to be here. Just checking, can you hear me okay? Give me a nod. Okay, thank you. So the place of our bodies, a place where as souls, we're all indigenous. At home here, we belong here.